All right, all right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of YouTube. This is Pastor Dow. Let's talk about law here for a second, okay? In our world, in our country, in our society, we have laws. We have natural laws. And of course, people have been taught all of their life to, check this out, obey laws. And what is the reason and purpose for us obeying laws? So we can become good law abiding citizens. And the purpose of becoming good law abiding citizens, because somebody has found out that these laws, while not being a detriment to us, will help create a society that would have some form of peace and serenity. However, we also live in a world that teaches us that laws are made to be broken, and you yourself alone have to determine if breaking those laws, if you're willing to suffer the consequences. Because you know how man is inherently, right? We have a law, and that law tells us don't do this, and the law tells us don't do that, and the law tells us don't do this. But however, if we can see some way somehow that we can somehow get some type of advantage, a gain, then guess what we do? We break that law. The consequence of breaking that law, it doesn't seem like that law is enforced at all until one day you finally get caught. And people assume that if they break a law, that they're not going to get caught. And what happens is we begin to relax ourselves and we begin to get very sloppy after breaking laws. And then the one day we get caught, we wonder what happened. Well, I'll tell you exactly what happened. What happened was the spiritual law called sowing and reaping. A lot of times we only equate sowing and reaping to the farmer. But however, there are more laws that are in play. As the old proverbial saying goes, there is more to all this than meets the eye. In other words, there are natural laws and then there are spiritual laws. It makes no difference if you choose to ignore them or not, because they are already in place. They're universal. And if you refuse to educate yourself, if you refuse to actually abide by the spiritual law, which is higher than the natural law, you're going to suffer the consequences of it regardless, because you know what? Law, naturally or spiritually, it doesn't care whether you receive it, whether you reject it, whether you choose to abide by it, whether you choose to preach it or not preach it or ignore it. It's just in place. That's all there is to it. As the old saying goes, there's for every cause, there's an effect. It's obvious that reading the Bible is full of spiritual laws. You either get a blessing or you get a curse if you break these laws. And our lives reflect it. And the diseases that we are experiencing in this world today also reflects the transgression of spiritual laws. That's the reason why the medical profession cannot come up with answers to certain diseases. There's also a point of no return. After you get to a certain level of transgression or breaking laws, then that law is just going to play out because of stubbornness, because of iniquity, because of self-righteousness or idolatry, or because you decide to define the law based on your own book of the law for your own self. And there's only one that can help you from that point after all. I mean, the only exception to any law is if the one who made the law chooses to not enforce the law individually on you because of, watch this, mercy, what is commonly called grace, which the Bible really defines as favor. Well, 2016 Tabernacles here at Straightway, we are quickly approaching a quota. I think we're going to limit Tabernacles this year to maybe 300 people. We're right now sitting at 300. No, right now we're sitting at 250, I think, is where we're sitting at. So it would behoove you to contact us, especially if we know you. Then you can be invited, because we're going to be talking about laws. We're going to be talking about transgression. We're going to talk about spiritual warfare. You know, the things that religious institutions seem to avoid. But we're going to inform you of them so you can get free of a lot of things. Now, hey, it's totally up to you. It's your choice and your decision. Understand this divine law, righteous law, listen to me. It does not care if you ignore it or not. But one thing truthful about Straightway and the ministries of it is we prove to you that there is something going on more than what meets the eye in the world that we live in. And that is the truth. It's told, and you cannot literally ignore it. And if you do, you do it at your own apparel. I personally believe that health, prospering and being in good health has to do with obedience to the law. The law that it's utterly amazing to me. You have religious institutions tell you that you're not under this law, but then you're under natural law. You can ignore divine law. You can ignore spiritual law, but you have to obey man's law. And I see the reason why the churches is some of the sickest places that there is in the world today, because we have been taught how to be disobedient. We have been taught how to transgress. Well, anyway, when you break spiritual laws, then there is a spiritual payment for it. And there are entities out there that will war against your spirit, and they have legal grounds and they have legal right to do it when you choose to ignore it. So nobody is exempt, regardless of nationality, regardless of your theology. Nobody is exempt from the consequences of breaking natural or spiritual laws. As the old saying goes, you better be sure that your sins are going to find you out. People that I've learned over the years are really, truly their own worst enemy. Let me give you a little bit of wisdom here as I end this video. Whatever you mean for others, you could be angry, you could be mad, you could be upset. Sometimes we get angry, and we forget that this tongue sets on course nature. That's what it does. And and that's many of you would never even know how true the Bible is until you really truly gain an understanding of what's really truly going on in this world. But this tongue was set on the course of nature. The temptation is the anger. The temptation is the hostility, the disgust, these emotions that you feel. Now, at that particular time, you have a choice. You can either try to gain an understanding of what's happening spiritually, because that's what that feeling or that emotion is. It's something that is going on spiritually. But however, if you pick and choose and you the wrong course and you go the wrong way, there are consequences, just like there are benefits. And again, suffering, sicknesses, and diseases, which the medical professionals continue to keep telling you over and over again. This is what they say. If you ask them, what is the cause of this? Well, we don't know. But you know the reason why? Because you cannot try to understand something that is showing up in the body naturally when the problem is something spiritually. So you have to actually understand or have an understanding of what's going on spiritually in order to have a solution, in order to have a remedy, in order to have a healing. Because if you continue, this is insanity right here, right? Keep doing the same things you've always done and see if change comes about. I submit to you that change is not going to come. Change is not going to come until you do this. Change this mind right here. Change your thinking. Change your thought pattern. Again, spiritual laws, it does not care about your acceptance or your rejection of them. It does not. But however, if you want to be free and you want peace in your life and happiness and joy, you have a lot of wisdom and knowledge you must come to. This year's tabernacle is going to be unique because we're going to be teaching on these spiritual laws. And we're going to be teaching the saints of the Most High Yah things that people do in order to invite destruction and devastation in their lives, which if you knew, chances are, if you had the information put in front of you, you wouldn't do. And then you could actually experience the opposite of fierce judgment. You can experience peace, happiness, and joy. So whether we like it or not, we're all governed and ruled by laws. You can go to our website, straightwaytruth.com, or just go to straightway.com, and you'll see a calendar on there. It says Feast Day Calendar. If we know you and you get approval from us, we will invite you to our home, and you are allowed to keep the feast with us. If we don't know you, the saints will get in contact with me, and I will make a determination if I want to invite you to my home. That's the reason why I tell people over and over again, we need to know you. Because a lot of times people, they contact us and they just assume simply because they exist that they're welcome in our home, and it's not the case. I'll be the one to make the judgment call if you are allowed to come here or not. But that's the reason why we tell you over and over again, make yourself known. We need to know you. Because have you ever met anybody, could be you, that they present themselves one way, then come to find out they're not the way that they present themselves, but they're somebody totally different. And that's what we want to try to do. We want to try to avoid any excitement and letdown. That's what we want to do, because we have a wonderful time during this feast. And of course, we're going to be delivering a lot of people who choose to be delivered. You see, if you're pessimistic, if you're negative, if you're fearful, if you're unbelieving, Pastor Dowell or anybody, no matter how much counsel, how many words, or no matter how much preaching and teaching we give you, we can't help you. You have to want to be helped. Just like, okay, sooner or later you get sick and tired and you find out that what you're doing is not working. So what do? You go to a higher power. Your higher power is usually natural doctors, isn't it? So you go to them and you don't tell them what to do. They tell you exactly what they're going to do in order to administer something that will cause health to return expediently. And then voila. At times, guess what you do? You end up getting better. Same thing now. There are many people in this world. We have spiritual conditions, and we're not getting any better. We're getting worse. And most people are learning the hard way. And sometimes minds can be so reprobate that you really, truly have never learned. When you get challenged with fear, doubt, unbelief, anger, resentment, hatred, rejection, and you start speaking those things, especially if you mean evil to somebody else, it won't be too long that the same evil that you meant for somebody else is going to come to your house. It's just the truth. And when your mind is only concentrated on you being righteous, self-righteous, by throwing words out, unhealthy words, we've learned in this society how to adjust and how to just love oppression. And when you have that attitude, you're just going to continually keep going from bad to worse, and you'll never get better. If you mean for somebody to lose their home and you hope that their life is destroyed, guess whose life is going to get destroyed first? And the other person, chances are, they're going to continue on. These are painful realities that we need to learn. It's just the truth. Tabernacles 2015. Tabernacles 2016. Called a dining hall. You may be invited. You may not. Because after all, this is our home. And I've learned over the years that you can let people come, but people are hypocrites. You know that, right? People are hypocritical, right? They usually are not what they present themselves. They really, truly are not. And it's utterly amazing, isn't it? Utterly amazing. But I hope you learned something about laws.